Will the Milwaukee Bucks repeat as champs this year? Let's get into this.
Dosage. Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetics.
Quickly before we get the video started, if you guys enjoy this video and want to see more NBA content just like this one, hit that subscribe button and that post notification bell. Anyways, back to the video. The Milwaukee Bucks are coming off a fantastic season. They were great during the regular season, which basically everybody expected, but the real test for the Bucks, and specifically Giannis, would be to see how they played during the NBA playoffs. And in the playoffs, the Bucks did what they needed to do. Giannis played great, he got help from other guys like Chris Middleton and Jrue Holiday, and they had a very difficult matchup against the Brooklyn Nets pretty early on in the playoffs, and the Bucks actually won that series when most people thought that the Brooklyn Nets would probably win that series in 6 or 7 games, but it actually was the Milwaukee Bucks that won that series. And then once they made it all the way to the NBA Finals, not a lot of people thought the Bucks could win that either. A lot of people were expecting the Phoenix Suns to just cruise to a championship victory, but due to fantastic play from both Giannis, Chris Middleton, and also Jrue Holiday, the Bucks actually pulled that out and won it pretty handedly in my opinion. And overall last year, not only did the Milwaukee Bucks prove a lot to the NBA world, but Giannis specifically to me personally as well proved a ton. Because before they won the NBA championship last year, they were always a really good team, but they always came up short in the playoffs. And in my opinion, I thought Giannis just wasn't able to win an NBA championship until he found a consistent three-point jump shot, which currently at this point he has a decent three-point jump shot, but of course it's not super consistent at this point. But clearly I was proven completely wrong last year when the Bucks not only beat the Brooklyn Nets, which was surprising to me, but also went on to win the NBA championship. But now the real question is, could the Milwaukee Bucks actually look to repeat and win another NBA championship this season? So of course this is going to come down to a bunch of different factors. The first factor is competition. So last year the NBA was certainly pretty good, but not nearly as good as it is this year. Of course teams like the Brooklyn Nets should be a lot better once it comes down to the NBA playoffs, because hypothetically most likely all their players will be healthy. We'll see if Kyrie actually comes back. He is playing road games now. We'll see if he actually plays at home once it comes down to the playoffs. You talk about a team like the Miami Heat, they certainly got better. The Los Angeles Lakers got better. The Phoenix Suns appear to have gotten a lot better this season. You talk about a team like the Golden State Warriors. There's just so many different teams both in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference that have gotten significantly better this season compared to where they were last. So of course, just based upon that fact, it would be a lot more difficult for the Bucks to win a championship this year than it was last year. Now the next factor for the Bucks would be to see how well their players are playing this season. So of course, Giannis is having a fantastic year this year, as he basically does every single regular season at this point. He's averaging around 27 points per game. Also talking about another guy like Chris Middleton, he's having a pretty good year, averaging around 18.5 points per game as well. Jrue Holiday also having a pretty good year, especially as of late, averaging almost 18 points per game. A guy in Bobby Portis has been a little bit of a surprise, averaging around 15.5 per game. Certainly has been a very welcome sight to see a guy like Bobby play so well. He's always been a guy that's a really good offensive threat in terms of the pick and roll, pick and pop, could post up. He has so many different ways he could score on the offensive side, but he never really put it all together. But this season, early on in this season, keep that in mind, it is early, but early on in the season, he is playing very well. And if he can continue to play like this for the Bucks, he certainly would be a very valuable piece for them. So I think overall early on in this season, the main Milwaukee Bucks players are certainly playing well enough individually for the Bucks to go on another NBA championship run. Now of course it is very early on in the season as I mentioned, and it's also during the regular season. Things tend to change once it comes down to the playoffs and especially the NBA Finals, but it's just certainly a pretty good sign early on for the Bucks. Now the next factor would be, how are the Milwaukee Bucks running as a team? How well are they running their offensive sets? How well are they running their defensive sets? And overall, how are they playing as a team? So very early on in the season, the Bucks are struggling a little bit in terms of that team basketball within the first 5 or so games, but it seems like ever since then, the Bucks have been on an absolute tear. Of course led by Giannis and some other guys, but specifically Giannis, he's completely taken over. Overall offensively, they just look so efficient and effective running through Giannis. And in terms of their defense, they certainly look like a very good defensive team as they did last year. When you talk about the different players they have in their team, they have some pretty good individual defenders, but also they just play great team defense as well. There's so many different players on this Milwaukee Bucks team that are just so switchable, which is something that's very important, especially in this new age NBA. We see this on basically every NBA defense, that more likely than not, you're going to have to switch multiple times in each and every possession. So having a bunch of different players that can basically basically guard 1 through 5 is something that's very important as a team. And when you look at the Bucks, of course, as I said, they have so many different players that are able to do so, especially a guy like Giannis. So they certainly check that box off as well. Now, do I actually think the Milwaukee Bucks could repeat this year? I certainly think they have a very good chance to repeat this year, but at the same time, I think there's some other teams in the NBA that maybe have a better chance to win the championship this year. Looking around the NBA, I would expect the Brooklyn Nets to be back better than ever and healthy once it comes down to the playoffs, and certainly that will be a very difficult matchup for the Bucks if they were to meet in the playoffs, which they probably will. But besides the Nets in the Eastern Conference, I really see the Bucks as beating every other team pretty easily. And I'm not saying the Bucks can't beat the Nets, they certainly could, and they've proven the ability to do so, but I just think it would be a very difficult matchup, and I also wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if the Nets end up winning that series this year. But let's just say, for the sake of the video, that the Bucks are able to beat the Nets and able to make it out of the Eastern Conference, which if they were to beat the Nets, as I mentioned, they probably will make it out of the Eastern Conference. But now looking at the Western Conference, I think there's a few different teams that would give the Bucks some problems. The first team is the Phoenix Suns, obviously. Although the Bucks definitely beat them pretty handedly last year in the NBA Finals, I think the Suns certainly have gotten a lot better this season compared to where they were last year, and last year they had a great season. Now, of course, once again, it is during the regular season, and once it comes down to the playoffs, your role players just don't play as well, and everything is just a lot more difficult than it is, and the Suns probably won't look as good in the NBA playoffs and in the NBA Finals as they currently do right now. But all I'm saying is the Suns certainly look like they have gotten better. Another team that I think could give the Bucks some issues is the Golden State Warriors. Of course, the Warriors are getting out to a fantastic start this year. It's yet to be seen if they could sustain this throughout the regular season, but if they could going into the playoffs, I think that's a team nobody wants to play. When you talk about Steph Curry, along with some of the other guys they have, Klay Thompson coming back soon, they're just a very scary team overall, and certainly have the ability to beat any NBA team. So that's certainly another team that could potentially give the Bucks some problems. A team that I think is pretty underrated that basically nobody's talking about is the Utah Jazz, but I also think they're a really good team and obviously could give the Bucks some problems if they were to hypothetically meet in the finals. But overall, all these teams, I'm not saying will beat the Milwaukee Bucks if they meet in the finals or playoffs. All I'm saying is they just would give them some problems, and I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if those teams that I listed do beat the Milwaukee Bucks if they were to meet in the playoffs. But overall, my final decision, do I think the Bucks will repeat? I personally think they will not repeat, but at the same time, of course, they have the capability to do so, and easily I could see that happening. But we'll see what happens going forward for the Bucks. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think the Bucks could end up repeating this season and winning another NBA championship, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe and hit that post notification bell. It really helps me out a lot. Until the next time, peace out, guys.
Dosage. Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetics. Hope you can't go where I'm headed.